So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jake Rosenberg. I'm one of the guys who started this alongside Jacob Usani. And we're trying to help people with their businesses to grow in life and in business. So tonight, we're all here to learn about sales. And that's why we brought out David Sternberg. He's very proficient in that. And I prepared a little speech, but something happened to me this week that I decided to scrap the speech and just be open and connect with everybody here, because after all, that's what sales is all about. So some of you might know I post every single morning a video to help people grow. I just share my thoughts, my ideas, how people can grow in their life, how they can grow in their business, and I post it on social media. And this week I made a post that, without realizing, was actually a very controversial topic. Now, some of you may have seen it on LinkedIn. I posted it on LinkedIn and came back about 2 days later to find 14,000 views, which I've never seen on a LinkedIn post, and 700 comments.
Could we clap?
Well, you might want to hold on to that. So my first thought was exactly that. I was like, holy cow, I've never had that before. And so I started reading the comments, and that smile just got wiped off my face, because this was 700 people that pretty much 99% of them disagreed with the thought I shared. And that was a difficult thing for me to handle. I mean, it's tough enough for someone to disagree with you in person. It's even tougher when there's a crowd of almost 1,000 people disagreeing with you out in the public. So after digesting that and speaking to some of those people that left comments, speaking to some of my friends and people that I value their insight and opinions, I actually started learning something from this. And I won't tell you all the lessons that I took out of it, but just one of them connects with the event tonight, and that is emotion. Emotion is very important when it comes to sales. If you can elicit an emotive response from somebody, you will have their attention. Doesn't matter what you're selling them, doesn't matter what product, what service. If you can get an emotion out of them, they'll listen to you and they'll talk to you. So I learned something out of that. I hope you learned something out of the event tonight. Before we bring up David, I would like to have Jacob come up and say a couple words.
Thank you everyone for coming. Before we start, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Friendship, for giving us the hall. That's number one. We were going to have, for whoever was expecting Primavera, we apologize for the inconvenience, but something happened last minute, and we ended up getting sushi. That's number two. Number three, I'd like to thank my family, my father, my wife, and everyone else for coming over here. Now, before I introduce David, kind of already introduced him, but before I give him the proper introduction, I want to tell you a story. This wasn't meant to be the story for my speech. Really, I was going to have a different speech, but things happen and we end up choosing a different route. So, my speech is my story. There was a boy. His name was Little Johnny. Little Johnny was 6 years old, and he was in class. Now, he happened to be in math class. Now, math class is not one of his favorite subjects. I totally relate to Johnny. Now, the teacher tells little Johnny, Johnny, if I gave you 2 mangoes, and 2 mangoes, how much is that? Little Johnny tells him, that's 5 mangoes. So the teacher tries again. Johnny, if I give you 1, 2, and 1, 2 mangoes, how much is that? Little Johnny says, it's 5 mangoes. The teacher remembers that little Johnny's mother told the teacher that Johnny doesn't like mangoes. He likes strawberries. So the teacher came up with an idea. Let me switch the example and do strawberries. So he asks little Johnny, Little Johnny, if I give you 2 strawberries and 2 strawberries, how much is it? Little Johnny says 4. 4 strawberries. So now the teacher is pleased that, her new strategy worked. So she wanted to see if Johnny actually caught on to the equation. And she asks him again, so Johnny, if I give you 2 mangoes and 2 mangoes, how much is it? Little Johnny says 5 mangoes. The teacher is shocked, and she's wondering, how come if 2 strawberries and 2 strawberries are 4, how are 2 mangoes and 2 mangoes 5? Little Johnny says, I already have 1 mango in my bag, madam. So, technically, the teacher is right. 2 mangoes and 2 mangoes are 4. Practically, little Johnny is right. 2 mangoes and 2 mangoes are 4, but he had 1 more mango in the bag. Most of our conflicts, whether in relationships, personal, business, with clients in general, happen because of we're technically right and they're practically right, or vice versa. We can either look at it as we're always going to be technically right, which most of the times we lose, or we can also look at it that there is also a practical side of it. The practical, the hidden 1 mango, where we don't see. Now in sales, in general, we always think, yeah, we're technically right. Technically, we agreed on this commission. Technically, it should be this price. Technically, it should be that price. Or technically, based on what we said, this is the right and that's the right. But practically, your buyer doesn't care about your technically. He cares about his practically. We have to find the middle ground, and we have to see both ends of it. Now, I want to introduce David Stern.
Thank you, Jacob. I like that story. How's everyone doing tonight? Hi, Johnny. I'm reading a little mat on the door. It says, enter if you dare. And it says, wow, how does that match up with, are you for real? Did you enter here because you dared? And are you for real? This is a book that I wrote, but I'll explain it a little bit later. Tonight, I want to talk about the business of selling and what it takes to be a salesperson. And I believe it takes 2 things. First, sales, understanding the business of selling, what selling is all about, and the intricacies in selling. And then there's another part, which is the personal development, and it's the communications that you have. There's 10 different ones, but the first one is communications. How do you communicate? And it's something that what Jake had said before. Jake had talked about communications. How do you communicate with people? How well do you listen to people? And that's key. And it's actually the 3rd step. There's 6 steps in selling, and there's the 3rd step in selling. First of all, I'd like to thank Jacob and Jake for inviting me up here to speak. The entrepreneur, the power entrepreneur, I think last time we did was a podcast, I know nothing about social media. I have someone who I hired to do my social media. She's in charge of my social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. I once in a while go and take a look, but I have no clue what it's up to, what it does, what it doesn't do. But I know everything about selling. So I want to give you a little bit about my background, and the reason I want to tell you this is because I want you to know that I'm no different than every single person sitting in this room. I am just like you. I'm no different than you. I grew up in a small town not far from here called Brooklyn, New York, Borough Park. Some of you might know it. And at the age of 15, my parents are Holocaust survivors. They came here from Europe. And my father lost his mother, his father, his mother, and 9 sisters. My mother was hiding out in Romania in a camp someplace, or some bunker. and they met here in the United States. They got into a business together, eventually got into a business together. Before, my father had 3 different jobs that he was working. And when he got into business and they got into business, he was the administrator and she was the salesperson. And I loved what my mother was doing. She kept on going and coming. In the morning, she could be in Pittsburgh and Cleveland and back. She would feed us breakfast and she'd be back for dinner. She knew every single airline, what time they leave from what airport, when to be there. And at that time, we're talking about 50, 60 years ago, we're talking about a long time ago, they didn't have the security that they have today. I always wanted to be like my mother, and I did not do well in school. And the reason I didn't do well in school because I could not pay attention to what the teacher, the rabbi, what they had to say. So my mind was always somewhere else. Where was it? It was, I want to be like my mother. So at the age of 15, I started my own business. I started wheeling and dealing in used appliances where people would buy a refrigerator, a used refrigerator, they sell an old one to buy a new one. They needed the money. If I made $2, $3 on each trade, and at the end of the month I made $200, $300, I was the richest kid in Brooklyn. And we're talking about in the 60s. Some of you guys weren't even born in the 60s. You know, I don't know if your parents were born in the 60s. But my father did not know that I was in business. My mother did know. And when he found out, because I made one day the big mistake where I had a client, a customer, bring his wares, his stuff to the yard. My parents owned the home. And when he saw it, he came home, he saw this, he went to my mother and says, "What's all this junk doing here?" He called it junk. You know, to me, it was a fortune. That's when he found out that for the first time that I was in business. My father, being a very Hasidic, Orthodox person, in his mind, I'm supposed to be in school, learning, studying. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, not owning a business. That's the way it is. So he found out how I did my business. There's a whole thing, you can read my book, you know, for those of you who buy it. But there's a whole story about New York Telephone, and I had a phone hooked up to the house. I lied about everything. Don't ask. I did all kinds of things. And I had a recorder call. It was a small recorder. It was the first ones. And I had enough money saved up for it. I bought it, and I ran my business. Every night I came home from school together with my brothers, and they were all studying, doing whatever they're doing, homework. I couldn't do homework, so I was hiding under the bed to see who called and what kind of deals can I make. And I had these business cards. It wasn't business cards, it was like little 3x5 cards. That's how I did my business. My father was so angry, he unplugged me from the business. He unplugged the business from me. So he pulled the wire out of the wall. But he couldn't unplug me from being involved with people. So at the age of 18, I had no choice. In the age of 18, instead of going to work for my father, I went to work for a bank. I started out as a teller. I was the first Hasidic Orthodox boy with a beard and payas working and cashing your checks. That's what I did. 6 months, I get a call from management. It says, "How about going to school?" School? Well, what's school? So I had to go 3 times a week, and I did. I went to banking school. I learned how to cash your check, how to deposit, and how to give you back the difference. That's all I learned. How to put on interest into your book, you know, your savings account. That's what I learned there. But I became vice president and elected officer within 6 years of that bank. I knew that if I am going to want to be wealthy, or if I'm going to want to have expenses, and I want them to be paid for, I cannot go to my parents and ask my parents to help me to borrow money. I have to get it for myself. So I went to banking school. Each time I was in banking, when I sat in the desk as a manager or whatever I was, I looked out the window and I saw people coming, people going. I said, you know, I like that life better. I don't want to sit here. I can't sit cooped up from 9 o'clock in the morning to 8:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. It wasn't for me. So I decided to move to California. That was at the age of 24, I think I was. And I thought I was going to do a geographical cure. I'm going to move to LA. By the way, your grandfather was living in LA at the time. And I figured I'm going to go visit him, and I liked it. And I decided to look in the banking business, what's available. So I got myself a job as a manager in a branch. And when I got to California in May of 1978, I found out that the laws have changed, and now a bank can be open on Shabbos. Now I'm willing to work, but not on Shabbos. So they said to me in my contract, I don't have to work, I have to be available in case of emergency. I turned that down. Now what? Go back to New York? I can't do that. All my friends, they threw a party for me. I had a brand new car. We're gonna go back to New York? That's embarrassing. I can't do that. So I was looking for a job, and I came across someone who happened to have a heart attack. He was 15 years in the business. He was representing a jewelry company from New York, in California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, and Hawaii. He had a heart attack, and his line was available. And I told his boss, oh, I'm doing well, blah, blah, blah. I was BSing my way. He says, David, if you're ready, we're willing to invest in you. Come and work for us. Take his line. He is going to teach you. So I learned the first time. I came home, I was in New York, I came back to New York, I flew in, I came back to LA with 2 big suitcases of jewelry. I had earrings, bangles, bracelets, charms, you name it, I had it. I had no clue. I had computer sheets. I had no clue what was in there. You know, we went through it once, but you know, my memory, you know, I forgot about it, you know, the moment I landed in LA. I opened up one day the suitcase and I said to myself, what am I going to do with this? So I opened up the computers. Then I called this guy, Lou Hirsch. He lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I said, what do I have to do? He says, come over, sit here for 2-3 days, and I'll teach you the business of selling. And the first thing he taught me about product knowledge. What is it that you're selling? How do you learn product knowledge? And at that time, product knowledge was based on what I was selling, who I was selling to, and allowed the customer to teach you about the product. So I said, okay. So I came back to LA and I called my first customer, which was Beverly Hills Jewelers, and the name was Mrs. Lewis. I'll never forget it. I called her up, I said, Mrs. Lewis, my name is David Stern. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm replacing Lou Hirsch, who's been with you for 15 years. Can we sit and meet? She says to me, David, do you have any shrimp earrings? Now, how many of you know what shrimp earrings are? I had no clue what a shrimp earring was. But all I did know was I had 17 trays of earrings. I said, Mrs. Lewis, I'm sure you're going to find what you're looking for. When can we meet? Tomorrow at 12 o'clock. So here I am walking in with my suit and tie, shaking. I'm invited into the conference room. Let me see those shrimp earrings. One tray, the other tray, the next tray. I don't see her seeing anything about shrimp earrings. I'm starting to sweat. I'm really sweating hard. And all of a sudden she says, this is what I'm looking for. So now I knew what shrimp earrings were, and they were 4 different designs, 4 different sizes actually. So I knew what shrimp earrings were. She gave me an order. Let me see your chains. What are your herringbone chains? What are your serpentine chains? What am I in the fish business here? You know, like herringbone? What do I know about herringbone? I know a herringbone after I eat a piece of herring. That's all I know. But this is how I learned the business. But one thing that I learned was that if I am going to go to a Mrs. Lewis or anyone, let them teach you the business. And through the people, I learned the business. I learned that I have to prospect and I have to make phone calls. We all have to make phone calls. So I made phone calls up and down the coast, everywhere. I'm going to be here, I'm going to be there. The lady said to me, what's selling in Beverly Hills? Oh, shrimp earrings, lobster tail charms. Everybody started buying. And you know what? I was the biggest seller of shrimp earrings and herringbone chains. Why? Because everybody bought it. That's what they were selling in Beverly Hills. Everybody bought it. But I did it for 6 years. I learned about prospecting. I learned about first impression. I learned about the hard work that we go through, and we have to sometimes go miles, or if you're driving, or sometimes that you go through days where you don't make a sale. And in the summer in California, I don't know if you know this, it's pretty hot. It gets 110 degrees, 115 degrees, especially in the valley. And my area was from Bakersfield all the way up to Seattle. But I knew that if I'm going to come to you when you're not needing me, when you do need me, there's a better chance that you're going to buy services or buy products from me. I was very, very successful for the first 6 years. I came back to New York 6 years later. The company closed down because of the way the economy was, and gold, the prices of gold. So I came back to New York, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I went to work for a company called B&H Photo. Some of you heard of the company. So I was there for 9 months. I said, what am I doing here? This is not where I want to be. I don't want to be stuck behind a counter. I want to be out there. So someone introduced me to a guy named Bruce Lloyd, who had the first mentorship program. It was a mentorship program that involved 10, 12 people, and they were committed to the mentorship that he is going to help you with the personal development part. Is a phone ringing here? So that's what he was going to teach you. And I was willing to learn because I was willing to change. And I had the best sales. I was a very, very good salesperson, but when it came to personal development, I knew nothing about it. So we sat around in a group, 10, 12 people. He asked a question. He sent around the mirror and says, "What do you see?" "Oh, me? I see a nose, a face, I see glasses, I see ears." I said, "I can see that also. It's not what I'm asking. What do you see inside you?" And that's when I shut up. I says, "I can't tell you because I didn't like what I saw inside me." So you have to ask yourself a question tonight. What do you see inside you? That's the personal development part. And by the way, it took 30 years, and I'm still working at it. It's now 33 years that I'm working on the personal development side and the sales side to combine it, to be standing on 2 feet solid, to be able to communicate with other people. And that is the key word, communication. Now, I learned a long time ago that communication is not that I can sell you and I can talk to you, and maybe I'll talk to you till my face is blue. I'm able to listen. Listen to what other people are saying. Can you listen? Can you ask the questions that Jake had talked about to find out what their needs are? So I'm going to go through a little bit of the steps of selling. First of all, there's something called, a program that I have, it's called Climb the Ladder to Success. How many of you own homes? Okay, so if you ever want to go up to the roof and change some shingles, I'm sure you're going to try to put up a ladder. If you do it yourself, for the self, you're not going to hire a company. But if you hire a company, you're going to see that they're going to make sure that it's grounded, because one slip and it's all over. You break your neck, you lose it. So you're going to climb the ladder of success. I have clients who I ask them, "What's your goal?" "I want to be a multimillionaire." "Well, get online, buy a lottery ticket." Or there's a line from Brooklyn to California. Everybody wants to be a multimillionaire, but what does it cost you to live every single month? How much do you spend every month? What are your goals? What does it cost you to live? Step by step. You have children, you have a bar mitzvah, you have a chasana, you have other goals, you have debt to pay off, you have other goals that you have to take care of. What are your goals? Don't tell me about the millions. Yeah, I'd like to see the millions, but I can't show you how to make $2 million. I can show you how to make $2, from 2 to 20, from 20 to 200, from 200 to 2,000. Climb the ladder to success. How many of you ever went out to buy a puzzle? Okay, you bought a puzzle. You ever look at how many pieces there are in there? Of course. Okay. What does your puzzle look like? If you haven't, think about it. What are your goals? What does your puzzle look like? Some people, it's a house in the country. Some people, it's ducks in a pond. I don't know what it is. But if you ever take your kid out to buy a puzzle, they never look to see if there's 700 pieces or 1,200 pieces. They don't look at the price. They just like the front picture. 2 hours after you buy the front picture, you buy that box, that puzzle, it's all over the living room floor. And you get really upset about it. But 3 days later, that puzzle is complete. And if you stop to think how they do it, you're going to notice that the front box is always facing upward. They always have an eye on that box. They always have an eye on that puzzle of what it looks like. So when they look at pieces, it's 4 pieces, the corners, and then they find the sides, and then they find the little pieces that it's all there. Where does this fit? So they go back and forth. Where does it fit? And before you know it, it's complete. What is your puzzle? What does your puzzle look like? Have you ever thought about creating a puzzle for yourself? What are your goals? And what are your commitments? What kind of commitments are you ready to make to achieve those goals? So how many of you in the room have goals? Are they written? Okay, great. Great. How many of you didn't raise the hand and are afraid to raise the hand? Well, get real. Yeah. Okay. You have to have goals, and you have to have a commitment to the goal. The business of selling, we know the business of selling is about building and maintaining relationships. It's not about going into a pizza shop. Do you want to use my service, my credit card service? I got cheaper, better pricing. You're knocking your friend off. You're knocking off somebody else. That's not what it's about. That's not selling. I don't know what that's called, but that's not called selling. Although you can make money. But if you find out what the needs of the client is, you can really, really, over a period of time, earn a tremendous amount of money. A tremendous amount of money. But, you know, you need to understand that. You need to understand what it is that you're doing. You need to understand that you need to follow up. If you follow up, it's going to be easier for you to get referrals. Referrals are easier than cold calls. Some of you have a problem of cold calling. Well, I know that you have a problem cold calling, so do I. I don't hate going to cold calling. I used to love it when I worked at Motorola. I used to work at Motorola, I used to go cold calling. Especially when it was snowing, sleeting, and it was really nasty weather because none of the salespeople showed up. You ever go into an office and you see on the sign in the front, it says, no solicitation, no salespeople? You ever see that? You know, I love those signs because it gives me a reason to come in. Did you see the sign? I said, yeah, I came here to ask, who do I call to make an appointment, or who do I email? Now it's about email. Who do I call an email to make an appointment to try to talk to you about what your needs might be? You know, I use it to my advantage. Okay, you can see it today. You can see a lot of homes and houses. No, don't leave flyers here. Don't leave here, you know, whatever. That's great. But I need to ask information. So if you want to ask for referrals, you have to build a customer database. And if you build a customer database, you can go back and you do the follow-up work. You can ask for referrals. You're entitled to ask for referrals. So the more customers you have, the more you can ask for. So the question is, how do you create a database? We had books. I mean, for years, we had paper and books. We didn't have computers. Now you have computers. Now you have smartphones. You have all these tools that you can use to create databases. So we had to remember to go back, and we were busy 27 hours a day going back and forth looking at the book. Who do I have to call? Who do I have to see? Today it's easy because you wake up in the morning and the computer reminds you what you have to do. So you have to create a database of clients, of prospects. That's what you have to do. And that's what you do in the business of selling. Why do you do it? Why do you get up in the morning? Well, if you went to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning because you were up at a wedding a whole night, you know, maybe 8 o'clock is not the proper time to go out for you. Maybe you need a certain amount of sleep. Some people need sleep, so you have to schedule yourself. You have to pace yourself. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So, you know, and there's going to be times that business is bad, business is rough. The roller coaster syndrome. How many of you like roller coasters? I love roller coasters. I used to love. I can't go anymore. High blood pressure. They don't allow me on a roller coaster anymore. Love to go up and down. The business of selling is about going up and down. The problem is when we go down, don't go down too deep. As long as we keep on going on an angle, it's okay. There's nothing wrong. That's a time that we can actually sit down, go through the database, go through what's working, what's not working. We have time in our hands that we can utilize that to our advantage. So I want to talk about the first step in selling, which is prospecting. What is prospecting? Today it's so easy to prospect. You got something called Google, and everybody heard of Google. You can take a company name, you can put it onto Google, you can learn everything about the company that you can learn. If you're selling trucking services or whatever services that you're selling, who needs this type of service, a product that I chose to represent? So if I chose to represent, for instance, I worked for Motorola, I was selling cell phones. Now, I didn't have Google at the time, so I had to really pick up the Yellow Pages. I don't even know if they print Yellow Pages today, but the Yellow Pages, I had to go through companies to try to find companies who might be able to use a cell phone and then ask them questions. The reason we prospect is to get in front of as many people as we can to try to get to them eventually. It might not be today, but it might be tomorrow, it might be next month, in 6 months from now, in a year from now, but eventually we'll try to get there. So we have to be busy with prospecting. If we're busy with prospecting, the next step that you do is what kind of first impression do you give? I gave a seminar the other day. It was like a bunch of guys who were out collecting money, fundraising. And I came and said hello to people, and they gave me these handshakes, these limpy handshakes. And I got up on the stage and I said, why would I want to give you more than 25 cents with this limpy handshake? You want to talk and give a good first impression, that you're smiley, you have a smile on your face, you dress well, not have a smell from tuna fish that you had for breakfast, or not have on your beard if you eat bagels and stuff. You know, you want to be well-groomed, clean, give a good first impression, believe, let the customer believe, or the potential customer, the prospect believe that you're an okay guy. And then you ask permission, and you're allowed to ask questions. And that is the biggest part of selling. It's called qualifying. Learning about what your needs might be. So if I know, Avi, that you need this and this and that, because I'm asking questions, not I'm going to sell you this and I'm going to sell you that and I'm going to make this kind of money, that kind of money. That's all in my head. If I can empty my head and focus just on Avi and ask you questions and follow that lead in the questions that I'm asking you, that whatever you answer me, and just keep on asking questions, get to know you, there's a good chance, Avi, that you're going to turn around and say, you know, I like this guy. This guy understands me. This guy understands my company. This guy understands my business. This guy understands what I need. What are the chances that if I turn around to you and I says, Avi, is it okay for you now that I got, by the way, I always take notes. Do you guys take notes when you're out selling? Take notes. If you take notes, what are the chances that if you take notes and you show that you're credible, that they're going to turn around and they're going to say, go ahead and show me what you got, which is demonstration. Who's your company? What's your company? Why are you here? What are you trying to help them with? How do you help them solve those problems? That's what you do in the demonstration phase. And the next phase is called influence. How do you influence them that you're the person to buy from, the company that you represent is the company to use, and then there's closing. I get 90% of the people that come to me say, I have a big problem closing. I'm asking a question, do you have a closing problem? Do you have a qualifying problem? Where does your problem really begin? Do you ask the proper questions? Do you ask the right questions? That's what I'm trying to find out. We have to show that we care about the company. I have clients who sell services to large corporations. I say, go in there and ask questions. Learn as much as you can on Google about the company. I guarantee you, you're going to find results. 2 weeks later, he says, David, the meeting was unbelievable. They really believed that I am the perfect person for that company. I said, that's very good. Now be patient. We're not patient. We need money right now. We need money yesterday. So we have no patience. Wait. 2 weeks later, he got an order, small order. 2 weeks after that, all of a sudden, orders started coming in, and today he's doing the most unbelievable numbers with that particular company. Why? It's because he looked at who the company was, he understood what the company was about, he asked questions, he obviously had a very good first impression, he asked questions that were important, and then he was able to turn around and say, this is what we can do for you with these types of pains. We call it pain buttons. So that's what we can do for you. This is how we can help you. And any questions? You know, there's questions and answers, objections. People come up with objections. By closing time, it's all the objections come up. When you have objections at closing, I can tell you that you didn't qualify properly. You didn't ask the questions properly. Because had you asked the questions properly, they wouldn't have these objections for closing. But sometimes there are people who are out there who are wise guys, smart, rough, tough, how much is it? You know, they start getting to your bone. The job of a salesperson is, this is called a high D, by the way, and the DISC factor, for those of you who know DISC, there's dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. So those are the type of people who are very aggressive, very demanding. How much does it cost? What's the bottom line? Yada, yada, yada. That's what they want to know. How do you deal with a person like this? How do you communicate with this type of person? It makes a big difference.
I'm sorry, what was the C? Dominance, influence?
Compliance.
Something?
Compliance. I'll explain. I'll show it to you later. DISC. It's called DISC. D-I-S-C. You can look it up on Google. Okay? How do you influence someone? What is your own perception? How do you perceive yourself to be? How do other people perceive you to be if you're angry, if you're nervous, if you just lost an account, if you just lost a commission, how do other people perceive you to be, and how can you shift back into gear to know that you're in the driver's seat, to feel the way you originally feel? So if you just lost an order and you lost $20,000 worth in commission, why would your next customer have to know about that? Why will they see there's something wrong with this person? Something wrong with this salesperson? How do you envision that? Well, if I give you you're in Spring Valley, if I give you a vehicle, and if it's an automatic drive and you drive into Brooklyn, you put it into drive and you just get there whenever you get there. If I give you a stick shift and you have to stick shift up and down, you have to change gears all the time. In the business of selling, you have to change gears all the time. Can you shift back and forth, up and down? That's what's important in the business of selling. And you need to know how to do that. The other thing is, what are the time wasters that you have built in? Some people are tremendous procrastinators. They love procrastination. I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later. Anybody ever promise their wife, I'll bring it home later? Or, you know, the women can tell me, did your husband ever promise you he'll do it? No, not your husband. No. Okay. So, but it happens all the time, procrastination. What about your desk? Is the desk clean? Is it cluttered? There's, oh, this guy is going like this. I saw you. Is that you? So, no, not you, but maybe him, you know. But, you know, it's important to understand oneself, to learn about yourself. What are the things that you're doing that are holding you back from being successful in selling? And that's what's important. It's extremely important. The other thing is, are you ready to change? Suppose you find out that there's something that you need to change. Are you ready to change? Some people are not ready to change at all. They're not ready to change. They'll fight you. Some people are not talkative, they're not schmoozers, they're not talkers. They're, you know, depending on the type of person that you are. Some people are like an accountant or a bookkeeper or a lawyer who are very into the books. They need to know the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. How many of you leased a car? Anyone? Raise your hand. Did you look at the I's dotted, T's across to see everything in the contract? Chances are not. You just signed, where do I sign, and move on. Why is that? Because you don't really care about the detail. You just got yourself a Toyota, you got yourself a Mercedes, you got yourself a Lexus, whatever you got. That's it, you're driving and you're moving on. Because you don't care about the details. And in the business of selling, there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of detail involved. Are we capable of going into slowing down and getting into the detail of what we need to do, what we need to know in order to be able to be attracted to other people, in order to people to understand and see us as good people, as good salespeople. There's a thing called skill sets. How many of you heard about skill sets? There's about 27 skill sets. Not all skill sets are for each job. Certain jobs, if you're in sales, obviously you need to know certain skill sets and need to have certain skill sets that are well developed or somewhat developed, or help yourself develop in order to be effective and to be selling further. But I'll tell you one thing, you are responsible for understanding and knowing all of this. If you're in the business of selling and you are offered a job, some company offered you a job, and you didn't ask any questions, you just took the job because they offered you money, a certain amount, you could make a certain amount of money without looking at the job, without interviewing the company to see if it's the right product, it's the right company. That's what's important. That's what needs to be done. And most of us don't do that because we need the money. You have to serve gefilte fish on Friday night to your kids. And then so we're going to make some money. So how are you going to make money if you don't learn about the product, if you learn about the service, you learn about the company, can they deliver, will they deliver? You don't learn about all that stuff, how are you going to do your business? I'm going to stop for a moment and I want you to ask questions. Are there any questions that anyone has? Please raise your hand. Don't be afraid. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I would love to hear more about this idea of being authentic and how that helps selling.
Okay, that's a good question. Being authentic. All right. Yes, sir.
The 27 skill sets, how do you know which skill sets you need?
Are you in sales?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
What do you sell?
I sell outsourcing.
Outsourcing? What type of skill sets do you think that are important for you to have in order to be successful? And by the way, I'm going to get back to you with being authentic. I didn't forget about you.
I think being able to change, like you said. Being focused, like having goals.
Do you have them?
Sorry.
Do you have them?
Yeah.
Are they written?
No.
No, you don't have them. Sorry to say that. If you don't have written goals with a plan of action of how many companies I have to visit to sell my outsourcing service, you have no goals. All you know, you need to earn a lot of money. And you're going to be banging your head in the wall because, I'm not making any money. And in the outsourcing business, just a little bit about your business, people don't make decisions right away. It's time consuming. That means you have to follow up. You have to get back to them. What type of CRM do you use? How do you know who you saw, what they said? Where do you keep notes and records? And get back to that person. It's important. Negotiation is one that I can think of that's important for your business. But goals is very important. Personal effectiveness is also very important. Talking about being authentic, how real are you if you don't know what your business is about? We have to be authentic. We have to be real. So you can talk about being authentic. You can get a copy of my book and we talk about being real. Are you for real? This is the title of the question. Are you for real? Because I have plenty of clients who've come to me and I ask questions. I say, are you for real? Do you really believe the bullshit you're telling me? If you notice, I use the word bullshit for a reason. Okay? Do you really believe it? Are you for real? Get real. Get honest. Be honest within your own self. And if you're honest with your own self, you got to be honest with your customer. Not because, I'm going to make money. I'm going to sell him a life insurance policy and I'm going to make X amount of dollars. He's got this problem. I qualified. He's got this problem, so therefore I'm going to sell him this policy. If you start thinking of the solution in the qualifying phase, you're in big trouble. Big trouble, because you didn't listen to the rest of the sentence that the person in front of you had asked or said. Does that make sense? Okay? So when you get up in the morning, why do you get up in the morning? Because I have a goal. You have to be committed to the goal. I have a client who said to me that he drives a bus and he finishes at 9 o'clock and the rest of the day he sells a service. And I told him, I says, if you're going to go to the same pizza shop and grocery store that your friends are going, I'm not going to help you. But if you're willing to get kicked out of places because you're Jewish or you're this or you're that, you don't look like or whatever, I'm willing to help you. The guy is now earning $6,000, $7,000 a month in residual income. So if you're going to put your hands into my pocket, I better be comfortable with the person who's going to sit in front of me. In order for me to be comfortable with the person that sits in front of me, I got to make sure they ask me the right questions. They have to have a good first impression. They have to understand what I'm doing. You have to qualify me. You have to ask me questions. And you have to be pretty real. If you're not, I'm going to know about it. And if I'm going to know that you're not real, I'm going to want to have nothing to do with you. Any other questions? Ellie, hi. How you doing today?
Great.
Okay. How's your partner? You're in sales?
Yes.
I'm just because you don't say anything, so I was just.
My name or what?
Yeah, I asked Ellie who your partner was. I didn't ask you anything. I asked him. He's the shy one. You cannot be shy in this business. You're in the business of selling. You have to feel good about yourself. You have to be authentic, feel good of who you are, what you do, what you represent. I chose to represent this product. I worked for a company, when I watched them on television, it was many, many years ago. They had the first prepaid phone card in America. And I'll tell you how bored I was. It was, I forgot the year, I think it was 1992, September. And I was watching television at 3 o'clock in the morning Can you imagine what my life was like at 3 o'clock in the morning if I'm watching television? And it was a Haitian French television. Tom Carroll was the guy. He spoke in English, and the person there spoke French or Creole, whatever he was talking. And I saw them. They had a card called a Amerivox. It was a prepaid phone card. We all used to use AT&T, MCI, and Sprint. And I loved it. He invited me. He wound up calling me up. Because in the middle of the night, I wound up picking up the phone and it left a message. Someone called me back. Tom Carroll calls me up and says to me, David, would you like to come down to a meeting? It was a network marketing company that's how they marketed their product. I loved the product because I saw the product work in Europe. So I bought into the lock, stock, and barrel. I spent a lot of money into this business. I came home crying after 3 days because no one would buy a card. So I called up my boss at Motorola and I said, Rosemary, what's going on here? I was like literally crying. She said to me, David, you forgot to ask questions. You forgot to qualify. Which one do you use? ATT, MCI, and Sprint. That's what was going on at the time. In the 1990s, that's all we had, is ATT, MCI, and Sprint. If you saw someone on a public telephone, and the chances are that they used a calling card, which one do you use? ATT, MCI, and Sprint. Would you be interested in saving? You forgot about that. Once I started to qualify, I forgot about the qualification, and I started to qualify. I sold over 40,000 of those cards. I trained over 14,000 salespeople on how to do that. It's about asking questions. It's about getting to know who you are, what you're about. Maybe I can do something, maybe I can be of service and of help to you. Maybe not. If not, that's okay too. Who do you know that it can be of service? Who do you know that I can help? What was that? Asking a cold call for a referral. People would give referrals. People give referrals. If you ask them the right questions, you make sense. It might not be for me, but it might make sense. You can actually get a tremendous amount of referrals. And if you go after your referrals, you build your business, you build your database. And it's all about building your database. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
A little bit off topic, but back to your story, which I read originally in your book, found very interesting. Being that when you were like 15, you already knew that you were very entrepreneurial and very business-minded and you enjoyed putting things together. What made you decide when you were 18 to go take a job that you ended up leaving for the same reason?
You married?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
I'd love to answer that question. I knew that if I want something for myself, I have to do it and build it myself. If I have to rely on a parent or an in-law to get my money, I'm never going to get off my dead psychic behind to do something. Okay, that's what happens in steadiness, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you after the meeting about DISC. In steadiness, a lot of people rely on government funding. So if you don't work, or if you work part-time and you get, Uncle Sam is giving you Section 8 or giving you food stamps, this and that, why bother? You're earning $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year without having to work. You know, so how does it make sense? And I have a hard time with that. Those are high S's and low D's. Okay? You need to learn about this stuff.
I'm familiar with this.
Okay, so that's what holds people back from being successful. I knew at the age of 18, I'm not going to go to my father. I didn't like my father too much. I love my father today, but I didn't like him too much then. He was very strict. Okay? So I'm not going to ask him, you know, he wanted me to load the containers to be a schlepper and to schlep boxes and rugs. My father's in the rug business. You know, that's what he wanted me to do. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a little bit of a free bird. I like being a free bird. I like being like my mother, who was always flying around somewhere. That's what I like. So I chose, if I want to do that, I have to do something else. I happened to go to work for a bank. I made $86 a week, and from that you took off taxes. So there was enough for a hot dog and maybe a Diet Coke. That's all that was left. But I was willing to do that, but I was willing to go out of my way to be something that I'm not going to follow. I don't follow rules. So if I don't follow rules, I have to follow someone's rules. So I followed the world's rules. And to me, it was banking. And then I left it because of Shabbos, because I had my commitments, I had my boundaries. There's certain boundaries that I have. So I have to know what's good and what's not good.
But going back, like, would you have told yourself to go into sales in the first place?
Sales to me was an accident. I knew while I was working in the bank, when I looked out the window, that I like being out there rather than sitting on the chair. That's all I knew. How I'm going to get there, I had no clue.
I like what you just said, because it talks about being authentic. Because for you, sitting behind a desk is inauthentic, which helps your selling in the first place. But my brother's not here. He's very introverted and he's very entrepreneurial, but he struggles to sell. And part of it is, like, he's literally been a salesman. I've seen him come home and crash because, like, it, like, drains him so much. So, like, selling is intuitive to me. But what would you say for an introvert, someone who finds it difficult, who's willing to change, but finds it very difficult to sell because of that?
Though I guarantee you, if I give him an assessment, a sales assessment, he would be a high S. Introverts are high S's. They're afraid of their own shadow. So they're afraid to go out and talk to people. You know, I used to be coming home from, I used to work at Motorola, I was crying, I'd go cold calling, knocking on doors. I would call. And I had more doors slammed in my face, I'm surprised I still have a nose left, okay? But I would cry. And my boss said to me, Rosemary said, what's this all about? What are you so upset about? I said, you have no idea how many no's I got today. She said to me, David, nobody's saying no to you, it's David. They don't know who David is. They're saying no to the idea, maybe no to the concept, maybe no, they're in a bad mood. Every time you hear no, you're getting closer to the person who's going to say yes. In the business of selling, you might have to go through a certain amount of no's to get to the yeses, and the yeses are the ones we need to cultivate and build on them in order for us to get any service from them. There's a story in my book. I was prospecting a company, some of you ladies heard of them, called Macy's. They were in San Francisco. 3.5 years I would come there, I would live in LA, I would go up to San Francisco quite often, and I would try to get an appointment. And they were always courteous to give me an appointment. I would offer them this earring, that earring, this color, this chain, that chain. Never ever bought anything. I'll tell you, I know how it feels when someone says no, but I knew I have to keep on coming. 3.5 years later, I get a phone call. And the lady says to me, David, do you have this and this chain? I said, I'm going to get back to you, I'll let you know. But I had a question. Why are you calling me? 3.5 years I've been coming to your office and you've never paid attention. You always said no. Why now? Well, I'll tell you. Because the corporate philosophy was that they have 7 vendors, and as long as these 7 vendors were doing what they were supposed to be doing, we're not going to put on an 8th vendor. So you stood no chance. Now that one of the vendors screwed up a little bit, you have a chance. I quickly got on the phone to New York. Do we have this diamond cut chain? They said yes. I said, I'm coming into New York. I flew into New York. I bought $50,000 worth of these gold chains. I said, I'll be there on Tuesday. They picked up 46,000 of those dollars. That's a lot of money. A lot of money in the 80s. The early 80s, it was a lot of geld, a lot of money. And guess what? Every single week I got orders from them. I became a vendor. It took me 3.5 years. I had the patience. Do you have the patience to follow someone for a long period of time? Some of you ladies know the company called Estee Lauder. 53 weeks. On my first phone call to Estee Lauder, they said to me, David, our company's policy is we will not put in any cell phones into any of the salesperson's car. I said, that's great. Can I come and share with you what we have, what we're about? Not a problem. Make an appointment. Made an appointment. Showed up. Same story. The next 53 weeks, I was there every 3-4 weeks. Made sure that I was there. Always brought them more information about the product, about the technology, about the services that we offered. One day they changed their mind. And NEC, Mitsubishi, Panasonic were all competing against Motorola. We wound up selling $250,000 worth of equipment and a contract of $50,000 a month in billing on residual income. For those of you who earn residual income, know exactly what I'm talking about. Why do you think that happened? When Rosemary Stallone came with me to Mr. Bruce Berenson and says, why did you choose Motorola? He said, we never chose Motorola. We chose David Stern. It's you who sells yourself. It's not the company that you represent. In influencing, you have to influence that the job that you're doing at the company that you're representing is important. And the product that you're selling is important because it can help them. But it's you who you're selling. You're not selling any company. That's what they bought. They bought David Stern. And I say to you, they can buy you by you providing the service, by you showing up, by you taking the time out of the day to make that phone call, hello, how are you, to follow up, and hopefully get referrals. And by the way, Estee Lauder to me was a referral. It came from a referral. I was sitting on a plane one day, coming back from California or Chicago, wherever I was, and that's how I got the number from the guy at Estee Lauder. And I can tell you stories like this forever. There's a company called Bristol Myers Squibb. Some of you might know the company. The chairman of the board at the time, Dick Gelb, called in. I made sure that in the communications department, they know who David Stern is. No one ever bought anything from anyone. But I had to make sure that they know who I was, just in case they need, just in case. So one day they got a call from the top. And it said, David, can you come down and show me, and I'm going to tell the president or the chairman of the board what it's all about. I said, I would love to, Maria, whatever her name was. I said, but 50% of the information I'm going to give you is going to be gone once you go into that door. Do you mind if I show up? You got 15 minutes. I had 15 minutes. I know as a salesperson, 15 minutes, if my job is to turn 15 into 45. I handed him the phone, asked him a bunch of questions, asked him questions. And that's what we're about. We're about asking questions. He said, well, why should I buy from you? I can go to 47th Street Photo. I said, you're right. You can go to 47th Street Photo, but I don't see 47th Street Photo here. If you're going to need service, where are you going to go? To 47th Street Photo? It's never going to happen. He spent $3,700 with me. And then everybody in the company decided to buy. Why? Because one person bought. They didn't buy the company Motorola. They bought the person that was there. It so happened that it was David Stern. If you're in sales and if they're buying you and what you represent, and if you show people that you can help them be who and have their solutions or problems solved, they'll buy anything from you. Any other questions? Yes?
So what do you think it was about you that you were really caring for them and listening to them and trying to give them what they want that made them choose Motorola over the other companies?
No, I was just being myself. I found out what their needs were, what their needs possibly could be. So if there's one lady in Fresno, California who was working for Estee Lauder or one of their division companies, if they know that they can go into a Motorola shop in Sacramento if they have a problem, then the same thing was with Panasonic. Panasonic had their own shops for corporate America. How will that benefit you? It benefit us a lot. That's what we have. So I was able to ask questions. I learned how to ask questions. How many of you sell a product that has a lot of features? Okay? You know what? Features are dead. Nobody buys features. They buy benefits. If you ask a benefit question, they'll love you forever because people buy benefits. So when I asked a guy up in, Monroe, New York, asked him, it's like, how would you like, how important is safety for you when I was working at Motorola? He says, very important. I said, what's so important about safety? He says, I don't have to look at numbers and crash into cars. It's very important. We have a feature that if you push a button, a voice comes on, and it talks about who do you want to call. It asks you who you want to call. And you tell them the name, mobile number, work number, whatever you programmed in there, and will automatically dial. How will that help you and how will that benefit you? What are you talking about? I'm not going to crash my car. And I had tons and tons and tons of features that turned into benefits. People buy benefits. But in order to buy a benefit, we have to ask a question. And the question are benefit questions. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
When it came to product knowledge, you mentioned that you learn from your clients in a sense, specifically about jewelry, but when it comes to, let's say, a product that requires a lot of education, not for the salesperson, but specifically for the client. So when you're talking to these people, it's not something that they, similar to Motorola, I'm sure you've heard this many times, where it's not something they even begin to comprehend. Specifically, like where I'm selling digital media in the Jewish community, for many people, it's like, I mean, it's something that they're clueless about. So how do you, I guess, instead of learning from the customer, how do you educate the customer, but keeping them, in a sense, like...
So the question is or could the customer be educational? Could you have an educational conference with a customer? Are you ready to learn something new?
Correct, and then eventually sell them, but how do you get them to the point of learning?
Asking. Would you be interested in learning? I'm too old, so I don't know anything about social media. I am old, you know. It could be some of your father or grandfather. I don't know anything about social media. So I'll hire somebody for my social media. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about Facebook except that I call it a fake book. You know, some people call it fake news. I call it a fake book. Okay? Are you willing to learn? No, I'm not willing to learn. But I have someone else who is. Why don't you talk to that person? But I'm trying to, if I see you as a teacher, that you can help me and you can help my company by giving me information, by teaching me information, why would I not want to have that information if that information is going to benefit me on the long term? So you have to find out, what are my dreams? What are my goals? How can I benefit by what you're trying to teach me? All of a sudden, this guy makes a lot of sense. Does that answer your question? Okay, any other questions?
David, can you speak more about time management, the importance of time management?
Thank you for asking, Mr. Kraus. His question is about time management. Can I talk about time management? If you don't have, I could make a statement. If you don't have your time management together, you're pretty screwed up. Time management is, if you go to shul in the morning, what time do you go? 8 o'clock? 9 o'clock? What's the result of going so late? I have a person that I sat with today, you know, he used to drive a bus. He still drives a bus. He was a teacher. Now he sells financial services. He parks his bus at 9 o'clock, and 9 o'clock he's on a job. I said, that's great. How can I help you? He happens to be getting up in the morning at 4:30 in the morning so he can get on the bus, finish with davening, praying at 7:30 so he can do his job. That's what it is. Time management is about managing your time appropriately. One thing that reminds me of time management is prioritizing what you need to do on a daily basis. How do you prioritize what do you need to do? Not in your head. Forget about the head. The head is very dark inside and there's a lot of junk between my ears. What can I write down on pieces of paper? What do I need to accomplish today, tomorrow, the next day? How many things? And then prioritize them. Is there enough time in the day to get this job done or not? If not, it's like I had a guy come to me a long time ago. He says he wants to finish Shas. And I says, oh, so join Daf Yomi, you can finish Shas in 7.5 years. No, I want to do it sooner. I said, let's take a look at your time management. When can you put in an extra 45 minutes during the day so you can finish earlier? I think it's 5-6 years already. I don't think he opened up a Gemara since. He was just a pipe dream. You're real? Are you for real? You're serious? Prioritize it. Write down what you need to accomplish, what you need to do. And if you can't do it, and we spoke about this before, if you can't do it, delegate it to someone else to do. So this way you can do the best thing that you can do, which is being in front of people. Sometimes we have a problem delegating. We have a problem delegating what we need. So we do everything. We own the company and we do the maintenance of the company. It doesn't work. At one point it doesn't work because sales go down or sales stay flat. If it stays flat, chances are it's going to go down. Any other questions? Nothing? Ellie? Yep.
I guess it's not directly related, but what made you write your book? Like, yeah, what made you decide to write Are You For Real?
Are you working for the media? Just asking.
No, I'm not for myself.
That's okay. That's okay. What made me write my book is someone in Muncie here pushed me to it. Says, David, you have a life, you have a story. Why don't you tell people your story? And that's when my book came up. When it came up to a title, I asked about what title should I have, and I looked at myself and I said, wait a second, look at my clients. I always ask a question, are you for real? We use that for a title. So there's a second book coming, and the second title is, are you still for real? So for those of you, those who don't know, what does that mean, still for real, go read my first book and then read my second book. Yeah. There you go. This guy woke up. Anything else? Abe? Yes, sir.
When you're being rejected because, in a sense, that a company says, we have enough vendors, we are not going to add at the moment, what is the proper approach at that point?
Do you mind if I...
Just walk out, or...
No. You stay friends. You stay in the relationship. Do you mind if I keep calling you and showing you new items, new colors, new styles?
We'll reach out to you when we need.
Well, that's it. You know, you walk out with your tongue out of your mouth, sticking out of your mouth. That's, you know, so what? Some will, some won't. So what? Next. Sorry?
Is this a sign that the person doesn't want to deal with you?
There's no sign. Right now, that's the sign. I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to bother with you. I want to see your face right now. The guy can be in a bad mood. Who knows? By the way, I had clients who said to me, David, you're the best salesman I've ever seen. I said, really? The only way I know that is if I see your signature on an order sheet. You know, so people are going to BS you. So, you know, maybe not. Hey, thank you very much for throwing me out at the time. I was able to go to another prospect and get their business. You know, but stay in touch. Always stay in touch. You know, there's a saying, you keep your friends at arm's length and your enemies you keep close to you. You know, but don't take it personal. If they say no to you, it doesn't mean, yes, ma'am.
So what if you do take it personally because the product you're providing is actually a service that you're giving from your own talent, or you know,
You're giving from?
your own talent. It's not a product that you're selling,
Okay.
but you get that in your face. So how do you?
What I'm hearing is there was no presentation, there's no qualifying, there's no asking questions. I think you sound like you presented something. As a guy says, I don't need this.
No, it's a visual thing. I do photography.
Okay.
So we do in-person sales, so sessions. So when they want to upgrade, and they just say it straight to your face, like, you don't like it or whatever. So that's not really selling someone's product, it's selling yourself.
You know, I have a client in Brooklyn who happens to be a professional photographer. He sells products, and he gets rejected all the time, but he gets accepted many times, and that's where you make the money. You're going to get the rejection, but you know what? I want you to reject me, but you should remember me. Remember me. Remember David said, you know, I got to talk to this guy again. I got to see this guy again. I want to see his portfolio again. So what? Some will, some what, some won't, so what? Next. Get rejected. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody is going to buy your services. Some will, some won't. Yes, sir.
With all the ways of communicating with people these days, what is your best form of communication that you recommend using? Because you know we have emails, texts, phone calls, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter.
First of all, I don't use any social media to talk to anyone. I use email or I use a phone. I call up, I leave a message. Or if I don't get an answer, I send an email. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. I'll get an answer, I won't get an answer. But do I have enough people to call and send emails to that some will trickle in? All I need is a few to trickle in. So I don't use social media at all.
And how long do you give them to follow up?
Well, it depends. You know, you need to pace yourself. A week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. You pace yourself. You can do that. And depending on the business that you're in, you know, if you need money now, you're already in trouble. You're in trouble. You know, I understand that. But, you know, it's not his problem. It's not her problem. It's your problem.
I'm not in sales.
Well, you know, maybe you should be. You know. I think the business of selling brings freedom. You're free. You can earn as much money as you want. You don't have to, I hate sitting behind a desk, you know, but you can earn a tremendous amount of money, but you have to deserve it. You have to be focused, you have to be consistent, you have to be persistent. You can do it. It might take some time, but it's very, very doable. Any other questions? You're sitting very quiet today. You have a lot of questions. You know, you can get my card and my book and call me or email me and we'll talk. By the way, I do have an offer for those of you who buy my book. It's $20 for the book. You get a 45-minute complimentary session, either in my BP office or by phone. So you don't have to come to Borough Park to see me. You can talk to me by telephone. But it's about being focused. It's about being centered. It's not about I'm on the phone and I'm talking on my cell phone and sending emails or texting. You know, I have a lady client that I see every once in a while. I cannot talk to you by phone. I can only see you. Well, why is that? It's because every time that I see you, you're on your phone texting or reading emails. I can't deal with that. That means you're not paying attention to me. In my office, there's a sign that says, please turn off your cell phone. It says turn off. It doesn't say go to vibrate. Because when it vibrates, all of a sudden our mind travels. Who's calling me what they want? Turn it off. If you can't focus for 45 minutes or an hour on your business or your client, you're in trouble. It could be your wife, it could be your spouse, whatever it is, you have to stay focused. And that's where reality sets in. You have to become real. What's most important to you at any given time, at any given moment? Any other question? Jacob, you're so quiet.
What do you want me to say?
Well, ask a question.
Everyone stole my questions.
Oh, they also... By the way, Jacob is a tremendous role model. I learn a lot. As few times as we talk, I learn a lot from this person. You know, the way he's organized this thinking. By the way, you heard him speak here tonight. Wow, where did he learn how to speak? You know, what? Rabbi Busani, maybe. You know, but that's what John Maxwell teaches you.
Yes.
You know. Jake, any questions?
None off the top of my head.
Any comments? Yes, sir. Ellie.
The proper approach to make an appointment by phone first, or just knocking in and saying I'm here. What is the
well, knocking on the door saying I'm here is a cold call.
You can be very busy.
He could be. He said, I'm sorry, I cannot see you right now, but it's a cold call. So when is a good time for me to come? Can I come back next week, Tuesday, around 2, 3 o'clock? You can ask that question. But there's a difference between a cold call or if you have a number and calling somebody, so you have the number, you got it somewhere.
So, in other words, it's better to knock on the door than first call?
I do both. Why not? Try both. But if you call somebody and you ask him, you tell them where you got the number, I got your name and number from someone else, usually was referred, there's a good chance that they're going to listen to you. They're going to make an appointment. That gentleman first.
Quick comment. Often during the day, businesses need to optimize their time and extremely busy. But doing drop-ins to grab a business card, get in front of somebody and say hello, introduce yourself, is always a good thing, and ask if you can call back and schedule time. I mean, that approach is a soft type of approach that's very helpful, I think. It's worked for me in the past. I don't know if you agree, David.
I have to apologize because I was looking at my notes. I apologize. I didn't hear what you were saying.
We were talking about drop-ins on businesses.
Right.
And, I think that most business owners are extremely busy during the day and don't have the time to meet with somebody. But you could surely say hi, ask for their card, and ask if it would be okay to call back and schedule time when it is appropriate. And that approach is effective. I wouldn't want somebody to barge on me during the day, but surely if you get my card, give me a call. Well, I'll take the paper.
Makes a lot of sense. I talked about earlier, you ever see the sign on the door that says no solicitors, no salespeople? You ever see the sign on that door? And someone said to you, by the way, didn't you see the sign on the door? I said, yeah, I did. I did. I came here to find out who do I have to call to make an appointment. What are the chances I'm going to get an answer? You had a question, ma'am?
Well,
he.
Oh, you answered it? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
My question was more because we were talking about B2B, like if you're doing business to business versus like consumers, because consumers hate cold calling, I've noticed. Like businesses, if you're gonna solve their problem, they're usually more open, but consumers oftentimes really hate being sold things. So like businesses, if you say I have something that will help optimize your business, they're willing to listen, but a customer who doesn't want to buy anything, like an average person, they're usually like, you have to convince them to let go of their money. So like, it's like, I guess what you're selling. People really hate feeling like they're being sold anything.
You don't want to ruin the first impression.
It's a strange
If I have
thing.
someone who is pushing me off, how do I get him to nail him down?
I love it. I love it.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
He has a client or potential client that always pushes him off. I don't want to see you now. I don't have time for you now. I love that. Thank you very much.
So how do you deal with that? What do you mean?
I'll say thank you.
What do you think the person is going to say to you?
Okay, I'm too busy. I mean, just like this.
Can I call you again? Keep trying. The person says, keep trying. I'll do that. Because sometimes you're being tested to see if you will call back. Are you just here to make a quick buck and move on? Or are you here to build a relationship? And you can be tested. A lot of buyers test people.
I'm already in the phase of like presenting. I got him a quote. I do insurance, but I got him a quote, and he's interested. I got him savings. Everything's fine. I'm tied up with something else, and right now I'm calling him every day.
So let me ask you a question. You're most probably in the P&C business, so you're offering them a quote. You're offering a quote. Why is the person interested in buying from you?
He actually reached out to me.
Why did he reach out to you? Why is he interested in buying? Because he's interested in saving X amount of dollars?
Correct.
I'm here to help you save money. Whenever you're ready to save money, please call me back. I have the perfect product for you. Be fair. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to bring this up. I think it's important.
Are we done? Let me.
No. It's not.
Oh.
It's a specific question. So on the group chat,
Yes.
a couple months ago, someone asked what are the thoughts on someone coming into the office often and being obnoxious and getting kicked out, or being obnoxious about the sales job. What are your thoughts on that?
I kick them out too if they're obnoxious.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts when these type of people get hired?
They get hired?
Yeah.
The obnoxious people get hired? There's a big problem with companies. People take on jobs with companies because they have to make money. That's because they have to feed their kids, their wife, their kids, their husbands, or whatever. They take on jobs. They don't really learn about the company to see if it's a product, if it's a company that I want to represent. I had a guy once come to me and says, David, I'm looking for a salesperson. You would be the perfect guy, but you could earn $250,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And we're talking about in the 1990s. I said, let me ask you, who in your company earns $250,000 a year right now? Nobody. So how did you come up with that number, $250,000? Do you think that's obnoxious?
Yeah.
Oh, you think it's obnoxious? Well, I didn't take the job because I knew the guy was full of BS. He was looking for someone to take orders.
So at what point do you say no?
Do I say no?
No, at one point does the salesperson say no to a client?
Oh, you have to be...
Or let me rephrase that. At what point does he stop chasing after the
If you go on for quite a bit of time and you see that you're not getting anywhere, you have a decision to make. You can pace yourself. There are some people that call it pain in the necks, or they have a different word for it in the life insurance businesses. They have a pain in the neck. They keep on calling all the time. You have to pace yourself. So instead of calling every week, every 2 weeks, how about every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks? Just stay with your name in front of that person, that person should know that you exist. You know, it's called pegarus, I think they call it.
David, look, I don't think, with all due respect, you answer this question. A lot of times, a salesperson has to say in the first time, no. There is sometimes, but because it wastes your time, you could move on to the next. When is that you don't feel any guilty conscience, or you say, no, this is not for me.
Exactly that.
So you said there's no.
If you say no, this is not, by the way, you don't want every single person to be your customer. There's a lot of people who are really not good customers. You don't want them. So if you decide, I don't want this person, I don't want to sell to this person, I want to have nothing to do with this person, you decided to say no. Can you say no and stick to it? You know, I remember 35 years ago, I had a problem with saying, I used to say yes or no. So a friend of my mother's once told me, he says, David, you know, there's something in between yes or no. It's called maybe, I'll think about it. I'll let you know. It was a very, very difficult pill to swallow, and I had a hard time with that. Had a very, very hard time with it. But I learned how to do it. I'll think about it, I'll let you know.
What are some of your favorite closes?
My closes are based on how I qualify. The questions that I ask. If I ask questions and if you say to me that you want this, you need that, or whatever, and I feel that this is what I can offer, this is my product, and this is my service that I can offer you, and you're for real, the chances are I'm going to close. But I got to be for real. So if I can really help you, and if I can really assist you, I can really help your company grow, I can help your salespeople, whatever the case might be, I have the program for it, you buy into it, you would say yes. If you say no, I got to think about it, there must be something wrong with my qualifying when I ask you questions. There's something I didn't ask you. Some people want to have an answer today. Well, sometimes you get an answer 6 months from now. You know, Boeing, salespeople, you know Boeing has salespeople? Do you know it takes them 7 years to sell a plane? Would you wait 7 years to sell a plane? Sure you would if you would be a Boeing salesperson, but you would understand the concept, you understand what needs to go into selling a plane. It's, you know, you're going to sell a company or a country or whatever, however they sell. You know, it takes 7 years until they close. Can you imagine 7 years? It's a long, long time.
It's hard to imagine.
It's hard to imagine, but they make a lot, those salespeople make a lot of money. You know, and not everybody can become a Boeing salesperson. Do you have what it takes to be a Boeing salesperson? Do you have what it takes to be a Deere or one of these big companies, these Fortune 100 companies, to be one of their sales people? Very, very, very difficult. Difficult sales. There's a lot of technology, a lot of product knowledge, a lot of asking questions, understanding the needs of the client in order for you to be, for them to say, this is the company that I want to buy. This is the company, this is the person that I want to be representing. We you know, like I was a salesperson, but sometimes I had to bring in technology people, sometimes I had to bring in finance people. It wasn't all up to me. You know, there's certain things that are up to me that I can do, and there's certain things that the bigger scale, bigger numbers, you know, that's the way it is. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Back to my previous question, is it okay to push that guy into a corner? Let's say what I did, is something what I did is I sent him an email that your quote is about to expire. On the other, asked if he can close file.
Okay.
He replied, leave it open.
So what happens if you send an email? Please be advised that this quote that I quoted you is going to expire in this and this date and this time, and at the end, if you still want to go ahead with it, please let me know. And if not, you know it's not.
So he replied, leave it open. So what's
Yeah. Well, you know what happens when you put me in a corner? I have a way to slip out of it. I love to slip. You can't put me into a corner. You know, so you put a customer in the corner is because you want to make a sale, because you want to make the money. Is it because the customer needs it? Is the customer needing the money? Is the customer needs the savings? Or the customer has a pleasant time? You have not created a big need for the person to be able to say, I need to have this right now. I need to close this deal within a week, within 4 or 5 days. It's most likely you want to make the money because you want to close, not the customer.
So where does it start? He has to make sure before he starts quoting that this guy meets what he's starting to quote.
Well, obviously. And by the way, you know, you're my client. You can learn all these questions when you come to see me. You can ask me all these questions, and you know how I feel about it. It's all about qualifying the need of the customer. You need a customer. When you find out what the customer's needs are, and you find out how important it is and how fast they need it, you know, if the guy needs it within 2-3 weeks, and it takes you 2-3 weeks to get it, I say, you know what, I'm short of time, but I'm going to do the best I can. If the guy says, my contract is expiring in 6 months from now, you know there's no rush. So we don't care that he got a 7-day expiration on it. He doesn't care. He's got 6 months. He's got a policy.
He actually told me that. I asked him, let's say when I started the quote, I asked him, this amount of savings, is this going to make you switch? He said, absolutely. Don't ask your boss. Absolutely. Then I got him the quote, I got him everything. Right now, we are tied up with something.
Let me ask you a question. The existing policy that they have, when does it expire? Huh? Still have time. So that's your answer. It's not about the money. He's got time. He's going to save it in 5 months from now, 6 months from now. Wait 5-6 months. Unless you're trying to sell, you ain't getting anywhere. It's cool. You ever hear of Harvey Wallbanger? Guy banging his head in the wall all the time. That's what you're trying to do.
We have 10 minutes.
Okay. Any questions?
So how does somebody who's interested in going into sales, for example, what type of sales he wants to go into?
Well, that's a good question. What type of, if someone wants to go into sales, what type of sales should they go into? I believe that if you're going to go into sales, if you're thinking of going into sales, I hope that you understand what it is that you're doing and the lifestyle that you have to live and all the steps that you need to be involved with in selling. If that's what you think that you can do because you're sick and tired of being a kollel, or it's time for you to move on and to provide for your family, if that's what you want to do, that's okay for you to do. I think you should pick and choose the same way you pick and choose what drink to drink. You pick and choose what you're having for dinner. Pick and choose who am I going to represent and what are the chances that people out there who want this product or service. Don't go out there because I can make a lot of money. Who can I go and talk to that needs this product or service and test it? See if it's true. Do people need this? Find the objections. Find from your friends, from your family, from your neighbors. Find out, what do they think about this product? Learn. Be willing to learn. And is the company reliable? There's a lot of companies who are going to make promises. Promises and promises and promises. They're going to promise you the world.
So that's what I mean to say. If, let's say I decide to sell iPhones, how am I supposed to know that Apple's going to actually deliver on a certain date, even though it's Apple? I can't make a promise to somebody to buy 100 phones if I don't know a guarantee of a delivery date for the buyer, of course, because that's what he wants.
So whoever you represent, if you're representing a particular company, why don't you ask them the question? Can you deliver 100 iPhones at one time? That's what you're supposed to know. The company that I represent can deliver 100 iPhones 10 times a day. I know the company. If you have to start asking the question after you already took the job, that's bad news. Anything else? So let me end with this. You know, I forgot what year it was. I'm getting older. My father asked me to join him on a trip to Hanover, Germany. He needed to go to a show. And I said to him, I'll go with you on the condition that you take me to the places that you talk about in Germany. He was in concentration camps and all this stuff. If you take me there, we're going to take off a couple of days. I want to learn more about what you've been talking about. I'll be going with you. And he said, fine. So we went to Hanover, Germany. Then we went to Dachau. We went to Kaufering. Went to Feldafing. We went to all these different camps. And at one particular camp in Dachau, there was one bunker that was still existing, the original one. I looked inside. It was horrible. I could only imagine what people had to live there. I mean, it was like really obnoxious. My father asked me to please step out. He wants to pray mincha. He wants to daven in there. So I said, okay. And I look at my clock because I know that Dachau closes at 5 o'clock. So I keep on rushing, and it took my father forever, it took him to finish that mincha. What kind of mincha is he davening here? So when he came out, he was done. He says, I'm done. I said, we got to get out of here because they're going to lock us in. So he said to me, David, they didn't keep me then, and they're not going to keep us now. And that changed the life of my father and I. We became best friends because he said we. It wasn't me. It wasn't him saying me. It was we. It changed everything. Today, my father and I, it's been already many years, we're best friends. If I can have that type of a relationship with my father, my mother, so can you. I had to learn how to communicate. I had to learn how to listen to what they have to say. I told Jake earlier, I think it was Jake, as if you point a finger at someone, you blame someone, there are 3 fingers pointing right back at you. It's a reality. If you stop blaming, now you got 4 fingers pointing at you. What do you say about this? How do you really, really, really listen, pay attention, whether it's the husband, the wife, the brother, the sister, the mother, the father, the client, whatever the case might be. Stop blaming others. Start looking at yourself. And by the way, I was 31 when I learned all this. I was the greatest salesman that I thought since sliced bread. But I knew nothing about people. I learned about people, and I learned how to put it together. And once I learned how to put it together, I became a superstar. Am I a superstar? No. There are people who make a lot more money than I do. So what? Who cares? Am I happy today? I'm married now for the 3rd time. I know how to get married and get divorced. Staying married is my issue. But I learned the reason that we are together is because we know how to communicate with each other. And that's where it starts, that's where it begins, and that's where it ends. Learning how to communicate with yourself, with your client, with your spouse, your significant other, whoever it might be. Learn how to communicate, understand them. Because the way I grew up in yeshiva, oh, I know better, you don't know anything, blah, 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 blah. That's the way we used to. We used to living that way. And that had to change. Did that have to change? No, I had to change. So when I started to make the changes, which was hard, it was very, very difficult because I believed the way I was, but I was wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. That's what I learned. So I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I'm going to hang around here, ask if anybody has any questions. If you guys want to get a copy of the book, again, if you get a copy of the book, I'm going to give you a 45-minute complimentary session, whether it's by phone or it's in my office. It's only for this group here. And I thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next time around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.